Hi, I'm Rick Parkman. Today we're visiting Jack London State Historic Park, one of my favorite characters from American literature. We're about to walk down to see the Wolf House, Jack London's magnificent house which burned just a few days before we moved in. Jack London State Historic Park not only is one of my favorite parks, it's also a National Historic Landmark. Let's take a walk and see what there is to see here. Before we visit the Wolf House, let's first take a short walk up and visit the graves of Jack and Charmian London. Our first stop, though, are the graves of David and Lily Greenlaw, pioneer children who were buried here 30 years before Jack London came to Beauty Ranch. Before Jack died, he asked Charmian to have his remains buried on the same knoll near the pioneer children, and that's what she did. In addition to having his ashes placed on the knoll near the Greenlaw children, Jack asked Charmian to cover his ashes with one of the large fill rocks that were used in construction of the Wolf House, and that's what she did. When she passed away 40 years later, her ashes were placed with Jack's under this same boulder. So this is Jack London's Wolf House, or what remains of it. The Wolf House was constructed by Jack and Charmian London as their future home. They were living in the cottage about a mile away, and they were constructing the Wolf House. Unfortunately, just days before they were to move in, there was a fire, and the Wolf House was consumed in flame, and what remains now is just kept in arrested decay. That was 1913. London lived another 3 years after that, but the loss of the Wolf House really broke his heart. It's called the Wolf House because of Jack London's writings, things like The Call of the Wild. Now, speaking of the Wild, we have a raven here today who's trying to talk to us. So we're looking into the interior of the Wolf House, and right behind me here is the reflection pool. This was an amazing structure. It's really too bad it burned. The reflecting pool is just one of many outstanding architectural features of the Wolf House. Jack and Charmian's mansion had 26 rooms located on 4 floors, and there were 9 fireplaces. Jack's library measured over 760 square feet, and the living room measured over 1,000 square feet and was 2 stories high. Construction of the Wolf House began in 1911, and 2 years later, just days before Jack and Charmian were to move in, fire destroyed the structure, leaving nothing more than the outer stone walls. There were lots of rumors about what caused the fire. Some people assumed that it was arson. Others said it was accidentally caused by workmen leaving linseed oil-soaked rags on the first floor. In 1995, I worked with a team of arson investigators who spent 4 days scouring over the site of the Wolf House. And as a result of their work, they all but confirmed that the house was an accidental fire, and that it most likely was caused by workmen leaving oil-soaked rags on the first floor. Jack London chose a site for the Wolf House that had a lot of natural resources, including these redwood trees. He actually felled several of the redwood trees for construction material for the Wolf House. Also, this hillside is covered with Sonoma volcanic rock, basalts, former lava rocks, and he used those rocks to build the Wolf House as well. But look at these beautiful redwoods. Some of these trees you find stumps, and you know that these were the trees that Jack London had cut for the Wolf House. Our next stop is the London Cottage, the actual home that Jack London lived in while living in Glen Ellen. at the Beauty Ranch. The cottage dates back to the 1860s. In 1905, Jack London began acquiring land of what we know as the Beauty Ranch. And in 1911, he acquired a parcel that included the cottage. He and Charmian moved in shortly afterwards. In the first year or two, they did some renovations, but they planned on building the Wolf House as their permanent home. And they began doing that in 1911 also, while living in the cottage. Of course, the Wolf House burned down in 1913. And upon loss of the Wolf House, Jack put more effort into the cottage, including enlarging his writing room. Jack London died in 1916. He died on the sleeping porch, and that's the room immediately left of the door you see in the photograph. He was 40 years old when he died. Beside the London cottage, you'll see a large ancient oak. I've always called this tree grandmother or grandmother oak. A few years ago, there was a concern that the tree was felling, and there was a lot of study done. And for a while, we thought the tree might have to be removed. But after proper study and analysis, it was decided that with some limbs removed and care and observing it, that we should be okay, that the tree would be okay for years longer. Now, the tree is still there, and she's still standing, silent sentinel above the London cottage. In many ways, that tree is a bridge. That tree is a bridge to the time of Jack and Charmian London. She was actually there when they were there. But grandmother is a bridge to earlier times as well. She was standing when the Coast Miwok were still living here, on the land, what we now call Jack London State Historic Park. She has seen so much, this tree. She's our bridge to the past. In 1985, I was living on a ranch 2 miles away from Jack London State Park in Glen Ellen. And for a few days, I had 4 Native American elders staying with me. We had attended a conference in Berkeley. And a couple of days, they were at my house, and we were just going to sightsee. And the first place I wanted to show them was the Jack London Cottage, because I had been working there, and I was really proud of it. So I said, hop in the van, and we drove over, and all along the way, I'm telling them about Jack London and his cottage and the history of the park. 2 of the elders had trouble getting around. One walked with a cane, the other had a walker. So I pulled up and parked very near the house. I jumped out and ran to the door on the side of the house to unlock it and walked indoors, and I was waiting for my 4 friends to join me. A few minutes went by, and there was no one there. So I got a little worried. So I went outside and back to the van to find my friends. And they were standing beside Grandmother Tree. They were huddled, and they were talking in very hushed tones. And one of the elders had his hand on the tree, and it looked like Grandmother was part of their conversation. We never went into the cottage that day. My friends spent the time that we had there, standing beside the tree, talking with the tree and about trees in general. And that was the day I learned the value of a tree. As you walk around Beauty Ranch today, you'll see a variety of old stone barns and agricultural equipment. When Jack London began to purchase portions of the Beauty Ranch in 1905 and up to 1911, he slowly acquired a number of these old structures, which he made use of for his own agricultural pursuits. Adjacent to the London cottage are the ruins of a 19th century winery. This is where the Transcendence Theater Company performs their Broadway Under the Stars events. Since 2012, Transcendence has contributed to keeping the park open. Jack London was himself a supporter of the small theater movement. As you walk around the Beauty Ranch, you will see stands of eucalyptus trees that Jack London planted. Perhaps the most unusual feature of the Beauty Ranch is the structure that we call the Pig Palace. Jack London built this as a home for his pigs. Each pig family had their own separate condo. When the local farmers saw what Jack was doing, they laughed at him. They thought it was silly to build this palace for pigs, and they called it the Pig Palace, and the name stuck. But Jack London loved animals, including farm animals, and he wanted to do what was right by them, proper humane treatment and care for their welfare. Jack was an early supporter of the American Humane Society. Not long after Jack died, Charmian constructed a new home for herself a short distance from the cottage. She called this new place the House of Happy Walls, and she intended it as a shrine or museum honoring the life of her husband, Jack London. And that's what we have today. It serves as a visitor center and a museum. The House of Happy Walls Museum was recently renovated. It offers attractive and informative exhibits on the life of Jack and Charmian London. The ground floor is devoted primarily to the story of Jack London, from birth to his death 40 years later. Here we see Charmian's dining room and the beautiful windows looking out on the Valley of the Moon. Today, the room has a number of exhibits, including Jack London's hat. Whereas the ground floor of the House of Happy Walls is devoted primarily to the story of Jack London, the second floor is devoted mostly to Charmian. We also see exhibits on the voyage of the Snark, when Jack and Charmian sailed down to the South Pacific. The recent renovation of the House of Happy Walls Museum provides a more thorough interpretation of Charmian London. There would not have been a Jack London without Charmian. Following Jack's death in 1916, Charmian constructed the House of Happy Walls as a place that she could live. She spent some of her time there, but she often spent time at the cottage nearby. Charmian had a bedroom on the second floor of the House of Happy Walls. Her personality was quite a bit different than Jack's. Jack was very outgoing. Everyone he met was a friend. Charmian was a little more reserved than that. Jack was always inviting people to come and visit Beauty Ranch. And even after he had died, people would still show up occasionally. In order to protect her privacy, Charmian had a peephole installed on the landing between the first and second floors. In the morning, when she got up and was preparing to go below, she could go to the landing and look through the peephole and see if there were any visitors below that she didn't want to interact with. If there was a visitor that she didn't want to see, she could go back up to the second floor, and she had a secret stairway that allowed her to exit the building without being seen by anyone in the living room. Jack loved Charmian, and Charmian loved Jack. They were truly soulmates, and their story will be told for years to come.